Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Me Without You record, Pale Horses. They are a post-hardcore and indie outfit known for their incredibly emotive, poetic lyricism, as well as song structures, especially on their last full-length LP, that kind of twist and wind along with the storylines that are featured in the lyrics. And again, that last album was quite literally story-like. The album was titled 10 Stories. But again, I think the enjoyability of these songs really comes down to the narratives told by frontman Aaron Weiss. Now, with the band's last full-length LP, there were some undeniably great tracks in the track listing here that I thought were fantastic, but a good chunk of this album just didn't do that much for me. I guess the stories that were being told in the lyrics were a little esoteric or alien to me, just wasn't really getting anything engaging or riveting or emotional from them. And on this latest LP over here, I'm having an even harder time, believe it or not, connecting with the band sort of on those levels. And for a handful of different reasons. I mean, one, not only are Aaron Weiss's vocals on this record obscured more than they were on the last one, almost as if he's kind of singing through a really cheap speaker or something. It's obviously an intentional effect that was thrown on, and there's also some reverb on there, and it just makes him feel very brittle and thin and distant vocally. And I think it really just kind of, I don't know, has the opposite effect of what I think they were shooting for. Instead of making my ears sort of draw toward the vocals because they have these weird effects thrown on them and they kind of have this sonic quality to them that no other instrument in the mix has, I think it actually buries them and makes it easier to sort of throw the vocals into the background, often because they're just really not that audible, which is a weird thing for the vocals to be when lyrics and storytelling sort of play such a large role in the repertoire of your band. And then there's also sort of the vocal delivery, which wasn't too bad on the last record, but a lot of the time I feel like the vocals are delivered in this manner where they feel kind of hokey. And of course, because the songs here instrumentally sort of follow these narratives and enhance these narratives, or at least try to, you're sort of getting the same long-winded structures that came through on 10 Stories, but here, because I feel like I am even farther away from enjoying what's going on lyrically and vocally, I'm not really digging these long-winded structures at all. I think the instrumentals are really the only thing that are keeping me from really disliking this album, but even they sometimes can feel kind of just overly dreary or dull, sort of like the twinkly, thin guitars sort of sparkling throughout the track Red Crow, which sort of interchange with these heavy guitar chords on, I guess, what you could call the choruses of the song. There are tracks like this in the track listing here that feel completely nondescript. Then there are other cuts like Two Watermelon Ascot that really kick the album off. That the first time the song came out, I thought I was listening to like an Interpol track. I thought an Interpol song kind of got mixed in the track listing here. But then once the screaming, the shouting comes in at the midpoint of the song, I feel like the band really kind of, I guess, in a sense, makes this sound theirs. I mean, I guess I no longer feel like I'm listening to Interpol. I feel like I'm listening to Me Without You by the halfway point of this track. And I do like the sort of weird, surprising, groovy passage of drums, bass, and guitars that this song kind of ends out with. And I love how this musical moment sort of glides into the next track. If there is one thing that I think is an improvement upon the 10 Stories formula, there was a few tracks on that record that actually sort of weaved into one another musically, so that I kind of felt like I was listening to this cool, cohesive, musical, cinematic experience. And on this record, I mean, that pretty much happens with nearly every track here. I mean, all the songs really blend together on Pale Horses. So that's a positive. And for the most part, I will say that the performances on this record are tight. There are some decent, instrumental performances on this LP. But these instrumental performances are really just only backing up and supporting songs I don't really care for. And even though these songs do weave in together well, I mean, just these tracks I don't really care for, again, are just being weaved together well. I mean, I don't really care for what's at the core of these tracks. The fact that they are performed well and weave in together, I mean, most definitely improves the quality of the album, but it's not exactly making me love it, I mean, these things just kind of seem like a standard cool thing that an album could or should have in its formula. A listenable album that has these basic technical functions down. And occasionally there will be some sweet guitar lines that pop out, sort of like during the really intense guitars on the song Mexican War Streets, or there'll be a decent refrain like, "This is not the first time, this is not the first time that God has died." Definitely a memorable spot on the song D minor on this record. It's just strange to me that a group like this doesn't really move me that much. Usually I'm typically into very wordy rock music, bands like Velvet Underground and LCD Soundsystem, and more recent favorites who are actually, you know, sort of musical cousins to this band, La Dispute, or even Touche Amore. But no, I mean, just Me Without You is just completely lost on me for this record. I mean, some of their more sort of, brighter, more aggressive, more anthemic and dramatic stuff that came out years ago, I mean, I definitely still enjoy it, but this album is just really not doing much for me. I mean, it's certainly well played and it's certainly listenable, but it's nowhere near one of their more well-written or more emotionally captivating records. I actually think, I don't know, it's kind of drab. I'm feeling a strong to decent 5 on this thing. Tran, oh, thoughts on this new Me Without You LP? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Me Without You, forever.